now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here on the Casa D18 Studios YouTube channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade J.J. Williams, thanking you for coming back and joining me right here in the theater. For today's film, we're going to jump into our DeLorean and time travel all the way back to 1955, and a film that is celebrating its 70th anniversary, Female Jungle. Now, Female Jungle is a 1955 black and white film noir directed by Bruno VeSota who also co-wrote the screenplay along with Bert Kaiser, the producer of the film. This was VeSota's directorial debut, and he and Kaiser both have roles within the film. The film stars Kathleen Crowley, Lawrence Tierney, John Carradine, and Jayne Mansfield. And the production was Mansfield's very first film, as well as the only American International Pictures entry into film noir. It's rumored that Mansfield was paid only $150 for her role in the film, and she went back to her job selling popcorn at a movie theater shortly after making this movie. Now, as our movie opens, prominent movie actress Monica Madsen, played by Eve Brent but billed as Jean Lewis, exits a cab in front of the Can Club late one evening. Instead of going inside, she crosses the street where she is strangled to death by an unseen assailant who rips the diamond brooch from the choker around her neck. Later at the crime scene, Captain Kroger, played by Cornelius Keefe but billed as Jack Hill, reprimands Detective Sergeant Jack Stevens, played by Lawrence Tierney, because he is drunk, even though he is off duty. Now, Stevens, who had been drinking at the club and does not remember what he has been doing the past few hours, learns from the club's janitor, George, played by Davis Roberts, that he left the club hours earlier with a blonde woman. Meanwhile, Alex Vaux, producer Bert Kaiser's role, is an artist whose wife, Peggy, played by Kathleen Crowley, works as a waitress at the Can Club. And he is one of the many bystanders at the crime scene, but he goes home when he learns that his wife left work early. Alex arrives just as Peggy reaches her door and is confronted by Claude Olmsted, portrayed by the legendary John Carradine, Monica's mentor who had been following Peggy. Now, although it is 2 o'clock in the morning, Claude wants to hire Alex to draw his caricature. When Alex and Peggy are alone in the kitchen, they begin to fight about money and Alex's depression and his drinking until Peggy finally throws him out. While the couple argue, Claude steals one of Alex's sketches and then consoles Peggy by offering to take her for a drive. In the meantime, Stevens hopes to repair his reputation with his captain by conducting his own investigation while off duty, and he learns from Sergeant Dwayne, played by Dwayne Gray, but billed as Rex Thornson, who is leading the official investigation, that Monica scratched her killer. Moments later, Peggy's co-worker Connie, played by Connie Cizon, bumps Stevens' arm and it begins to bleed. But he hides the blood and George mops up the floor in order to protect him. When Claude takes Peggy to his expensive modern home, Stevens goes to Connie's apartment to question her further and learns that he left the club that night with a woman named Candy Price, the lovely Jayne Mansfield, who lives in the same building as Peggy. Stevens goes to see Candy, a blonde seductress who has been waiting for him for 4 hours. While he is there, the radio rebroadcasts an interview with Monica and Claude that was made earlier in the evening at her movie's premiere. Stevens arranges to meet Claude at the club, where Dwayne protests Stevens' involvement in the investigation. But when Stevens confesses that he is only trying to make things right, Dwayne relents. Stevens then talks to the radio announcer, Larry Jackson, played by Gordon Urquhart, who says that Monica and Claude were having a disagreement during the premiere. I apologize if I didn't pronounce your name right, Gordon. Upon returning home, Alex discovers that his wife is gone. And while leafing through the sketchbook, he finds a drawing of Claude and remembers sketching him on the same night that he drew Monica. After showing the sketch to the policeman, Alex reveals that he saw Claude watching Monica at the club just a couple of weeks prior, and that he is now worried because he believes that Peggy is alone with Claude. When Alex leaves the club, he is met by Candy, with whom he is having an affair. Alex tells her that he has renewed love for his wife, and he wants to end their relationship, just as Claude arrives with Peggy in the car. Alex then accuses Peggy of having an affair, and she runs home, after which Alex follows Claude into the club. Inside, the police question Claude, and although he initially refuses to speak without a lawyer present, he relents and admits that he did love Monica, but he did not kill her. When Dwayne threatens to rough up Claude, Stevens strikes the officer, who hits him back, and Claude escapes during the ensuing fistfight. Alex, meanwhile, calls Peggy to try to apologize and warn her that Claude is a murderer, but it's too late because Claude is already inside their apartment. Terrified, Peggy runs outside and encounters Alex, who is enraged and incoherent. When Candy approaches them, Peggy runs away, and Alex angrily grabs Candy and demands that she obtain the caricature that Claude stole from him. Candy promises to help, and Alex confesses that he blackmailed Monica to get money for Candy, and then killed Monica when she threatened to go to the police. When Candy cries for help, Alex strangles her to death and is shot by Dwayne after he tries to flee. Afterward at the club, Claude explains that he had originally approached Peggy to tell her about Alex's affair with Monica, which began when he worked as an artist on her film. After Alex tried to blackmail Monica about their affair, she threatened to go to the police and ended their relationship. Claude became jealous when she then announced that she was marrying a producer, and they argued about it at the premiere, after which she ran out. By the time that Claude had arrived at the club, she had already been murdered, and the diamond brooch that he had given her was missing. Later at Alex's apartment, Claude discovered a caricature of Monica in Alex's sketchbook, which showed her wearing the brooch, and discovers the brooch itself in Alex's portfolio. With the murder mystery solved, Dwayne takes Claude and the distraught Peggy to police headquarters in order to make their statements. Stevens, who had feared that he may have committed the murder during his lost hours, still has no recollection of what he did during that time. Joe, played by James Codall, the club's owner, and George are finally able to close the nightclub for the evening as our movie comes to its close. The movie was shot in only 6 days, and according to lore, one day with half the film to finish. Kathleen Crowley, who played Peggy, turned up to filming 3 hours late, claiming she had been raped. The script was then rewritten to build up the role of played by Jayne Mansfield, the Candy character, and additional scenes were shot involving a stunt double for Crowley. In the book, Death on the Cheap, author Arthur Lyons writes that the film, although, quote, shoddily written, produced, and directed, is significant for several reasons, including the fact that it was American International's only foray into film noir, as well as the fact that the film also marked a return to the screen of noir icon Lawrence Tierney, whose off-screen bar brawls and numerous arrests during the 1940s had basically made him persona non grata in Hollywood. If I'm being completely transparent here, while I enjoyed the film for the most part, I do feel like it drug a little bit. And it took too long to get to the point where we actually had the killer revealed. I actually had to rewind the film to catch who the killer was because I missed it. I do feel that Jayne Mansfield as Candy completely steals the film, and it's no secret why she went on to become such a force in Hollywood at the time. I give this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. What do you guys think? Has anybody out there ever seen this film, Female Jungle? I had never even heard of it until I started going through, films that came out in 1955, 1960, 1945, 1950, going by year. Basically, I started in 1920 and went all the way up to 2020, so 100 years of movies, trying to find movies that were celebrating an anniversary that either ended in a 5 or a 0. And I stumbled onto this movie, Female Jungle, saw John Carradine listed, saw Jayne Mansfield listed, and I was like, let me give this a try. And like I said, while I did enjoy it for the most part, I feel like it drug a little bit. There were some parts that were kind of hard to keep up with, but every time that Candy was on the screen, Jayne Mansfield, you're drawn in, you're captivated. What more can you say? I mean, it's Jayne Mansfield. I did enjoy the film. It's another one of those that if I ever found it at a thrift store on the cheap, I'd pick it up, if for no other reason but because it's Jayne Mansfield's first movie. And that's a great piece to have in your collection. But if I go the rest of my life without watching this movie again, am I going to miss it? Probably not. That's why I only put it middle of the road, 2.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely worth a watch. Don't know if it's worth multiple repeated watches. But again, any of you guys out there that have seen Female Jungle, let me know. Leave your thoughts in the comment box below. Let's engage in conversation, discussion, debate, interaction, discourse, all those good words. Let's communicate about the movies, man. I want to thank you guys for joining me once again here in the theater. And until next time here on Renegades Reviews, I will catch y'all later.